Hi, and welcome back to the second hour of Focal Point AFR Talk. Brian Fisher is my name. The program is Focal Point, the home of muscular Christianity on Conservative Talk Radio. You are listening to High Definition Radio on AFR Talk and Focal Point. Don't forget to call and leave us your story about how Focal Point or AFR Talk has helped you in some way, encouraged you, challenged you, motivated you, instructed you. Call 877-876-8893. It's a direct line. You'll be able to record your message there. We might be able to use it during Share-a-thon, 877-876-8893. Also want to mention that coming up, premiering nationwide on March 21st, is the movie God's Not Dead. So this is going to be a theatrical release. You know, we've seen the movie The Son of God came out at the just premiered not too long ago. We got this blockbuster Noah is coming up, is going to be released. The miniseries The Bible was a huge hit on cable. So it seems to be an environment now where there's a room in the marketplace for faith-friendly films, and God's Not Dead fits that category. Premieres March 21st. The basic plot lines, Kevin Sorbo, you probably recognize him from the Hercules movies. Kevin Sorbo plays this atheist professor. There's a young student who challenges his atheism. They wind up debating issues of faith, God, and atheism in front of the professor's class. Family-friendly, truth-packed film, timely message for the culture. March 21st, God is Not Dead. Want you to plan now to go see that. Purchase your tickets ahead of time. Plan to go that with family and friends. Now, I want to talk about, and just refer you to the column that I wrote this morning. It's up at rightlyconcerned.com. It's also up on our news site at onenewsnow.com. You can read it there. The title of my piece is The Democrats' Choice: Repeal Obamacare or Impeach Obama. Now, what I'm talking about is based on what happened last night in Florida, in part, where, in my judgment, the candidate that lost last night was Barack Obama. Now, his name officially wasn't on the ballot, but this was a referendum on Obama and Obamacare. You know, as I mentioned, the Republican candidate campaigned almost exclusively on the issue of Obamacare. He won this race even though he was underfunded, had no name ID, no name recognition, was a first-time candidate going up against an experienced, high-profile candidate from the Democratic Party who'd run for governor 2010, very high profile, very visible, a lot of money, and the first-timer beat her. And he was not. He was a lackluster campaigner. You had a libertarian in the race that probably siphoned off several points from the Republican. And so I think the reality is the handwriting is now on the wall for the Democrats, and they're getting increasingly desperate. I think the Democratic ship of state has actually hit the iceberg. I think you've got water flooding into the basement holds, the hold of the ship. And unless they take some kind of emergency measures, they are headed for the seabed. They are headed to the sea floor. You know, and I mentioned that poster referring to, well, it was Stu Rothenberg back in January saying, look, Obamacare is an albatross around the neck of the Democrats. He said that's way too weak. It is an anvil around their necks. You got Democrats, they're scrambling to get as far away from Barack Obama as humanly possible. He's making these pathetic and I think humiliating appearances on these parody shows, trying to get young people to sign up. They're not signing up. I think in Oregon, 18% of the people that have signed up are the invincibles, the young people. Remember, they got to have 40% of all of the signups. 40% of them have to be these young people that really don't need insurance because they got to take their premiums and they got to transfer that. It's the greatest involuntary redistribution of wealth in the history of mankind. Money being taken from the young and the poor and transferred to the old and the affluent. I mean, anybody looking at this would be outraged at the way President Obama is fleecing the poor, fleecing the young, fleecing the low-income Americans in order to transfer wealth out of their wallets to people who are at the end of their earning lives. I mean, it's just outrageous that is taking place, but that's what the whole thing is predicated on. So I think the Democrats are looking at just almost certain political death in November. You know, desperate times call for desperate measures, and not that the Democrats are going to take my advice, but if they were, my advice to them was it's time for you, Democrats, to get out in front of this thing, lead the charge for a full, entire, unqualified repeal of Obamacare, just like Ted Cruz says, every last word. Democrats, if you don't want to go to the bottom of the sea in November, you'd better lead the charge to repeal this monstrosity, every last word. And the only other alternative is impeach your own president. Those are the only two chances you have to survive in November. You got to pick your poison, patch the boat by dumping Obamacare and Obama, or you're going to ride this puppy to the bottom of the ocean. It's your choice. What will it be? Now, one other thing. Well, let me go to the phones. When we get into the next segment, I will talk about another major adjustment that President Obama has made in Obamacare and hasn't told anybody. Wall Street Journal broke it. It'll blow you away what President Obama has done to Obamacare, and I'll explain that in the next segment. Let's go to the phones. Deborah, Springdale, Arkansas. Deborah, Springdale, Arkansas, welcome. What's on your mind?
During the time when Barack Obama was voted in, the people of the Jewish faith were repeating and reciting the Torah, and it said in Exodus 1:8 that there would become a Pharaoh who knew not Jesus or Joseph. That's how it's stated. Now, relate that to what is going on with Obama. And Ecclesiastes 1:9 says, history repeats itself. What it's been will be again. So there you go. You see what it all comes down to is that God is in control, Obama isn't, and he is doomed, whether he knows it or not. Have a great day. Bye.
All right, Deborah, appreciate that. Thank you for that. Basically saying, look, she's seeing the handwriting on the wall too. I mean, it's like that scene out of Daniel. Remember where Daniel's in there and the handwriting suddenly appears on the wall? You've been found in the balance, and you've been weighed and found wanting. Well, let's go to John, Richmond, Virginia. John, welcome. What's on your mind?
Hey, man. Listen, I really appreciate what you and Dan Celia do. You guys get us so fired up. Just make sure Dan takes plenty of breaks, because he acts like he's going to pop a fuse. So anyway.
he goes full bore, doesn't he? He goes full bore, doesn't he? Yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
Just like Brian Fisher. But anyway, hey, I've been listening to NPR all day, National Public Radio, just to see, what the other side was saying. And
you poor
they're
man.
They're not touching the election.
The Florida election?
They're talking about microbes in the stomach and things like that, but nothing about it.
Well, and it's lethal for them. I mean, that's why they're staying away from this thing, is there is no way, I mean, the lipstick on a pig analogy, there's no way you can dress that thing up and make that into anything other than an absolute catastrophe for the Democrats. And so the fact, John, that NPR even is staying away from this means they know that it's toxic. It's like an electrified fence for them. They don't want to go anywhere near that election last night because they will get the toxic shock of their lives. All right, John, well, listen, I appreciate the call. Thank you very much. And I appreciate, John, especially you sacrificing yourself listening to NPR so we don't have to. You are a good man, a better man than I. All right, Focal Point AF for Talk. Stay tuned. When I come back, I am going to talk about what President Obama has done. He tried to slip it under the radar. The Wall Street Journal caught him. This ought to be the lead story on every media network in the land. It's not. We'll bring it to you. Stuff you're only going to hear here on Focal Point. Back in 2.